Did you know that there was a transgender nun in the 1600s? Catalina di Rosso, also known as the Lieutenant Nun, lived most of her life as a man. He fought as a soldier in the Spanish colonials and even secured papal recognition to continue his male identity. Though transgender wasn't a term back then, he insisted on being called Alonso or Antonio, a fierce, rule-breaking trailblazer. Albert Kashia was a transgender man who fought bravely in the Union Army during the American Civil War. He lived as a man in every single part of his life, a soldier, a worker, and neighbour, silent, strong, and simply himself. Though not labelled trans in her time, Hiratsuka Raicho pushed gender boundaries in the Meiji era Japan, embracing masculine roles, radical autonomy, and challenging binary. Founder of Japan's first feminist magazine, she lived boldly in the space between he and she, poet, philosopher, and pioneer of queer modernity. Michael Dillon was the first ever known trans man to undergo phalloplasty, and this was in the 1940s. A physician, writer, and Buddhist monk, he transitioned long before trans healthcare was even recognised. He wrote one of the earliest books advocating for trans rights and lived authentically in a time of total erasure, quietly revolutionary and medically historic. In 3000 BCE, Inanna was an ancient goddess of sex and war whose priests were gender non-conforming. She celebrated transformation and made space for third gender identities in sacred ritual. Trans people have always existed, powerful, sacred, and divine. We're not new. We're legendary.
Good news, everyone! August is Trans History Month, and tonight we're starting it off with some stories from the community, as well as a tale of transition that might give some of you some hope. Good news starts right now.
On May 6, 1933, young Nazis broke into the Institute of Sexology, a scientific organization dedicated to LGBTQ+ advocacy and gender research, and the world's first transgender clinic. Over the course of the next 4 days, they burned the entire contents of the library, including over 20,000 books and countless pieces of literature on reproductive and sexual health across Germany. This is the most important episode of queer history I have ever made, and I am literally begging you to watch the whole thing. The Institute for Sexual Research, or Sexology, depending on translation, pioneered groundbreaking gender care, including the first uterine transplant in Lily Elby. The nonprofit institution was opened in 1919 by Magnus Hirschfeld, a gay, Jewish, and openly liberal doctor in Berlin. Magnus was initially reluctant to perform gender transitioning surgeries, but he changed his mind when he realized that this was life-saving care that could prevent people from attempting to take their own lives. Care included facial feminization and masculinization surgeries, hair removal, and more complicated gender reassignment procedures. I cannot properly express to you how insanely progressive the ideas of the Institute of Sexology were. Dr. Hirschfeld cared for intersex, transgender, gender fluid, and non-binary folks and recognized that gender identity and sexual orientation were entirely separate entities. Dr. Magnus believed that allowing people to present as they pleased was acting in accordance with their nature, not against it. He coined both the words transsexual and transvestite, and he staffed the Institute with psychologists, gynecologists, radiologists, lawyers, general practitioners, and more to provide low-cost or free treatment for sexually transmitted diseases, marital and personal counseling, alcoholism, and gender transitions. However, one of the most popular services they offered was providing birth control, which was illegal to straight couples who were poor or working class. Most of these practices were largely experimental, but even so, Ludwig Levy-Lenz, the Institute's primary surgeon for reassignments, said he had never cared for more grateful patients. As an alternative to conversion therapy, the center taught adaptation therapy, which instructed queer people how to safely navigate a heterosexual world with minimal discomfort to their true selves. Dr. Magnus fought for the political equality of gay and transgender folks, as well as cis women. He advocated for the repeal of paragraph 175, which criminalized homosexuality in Germany, and even got his trans female patients legal identification passes with a gender marker transvestite to prevent them from being arrested for cross-dressing in public. The Institute tried to make their space as welcoming as possible, making it feel plush, warm, and full of life. Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld and his partner Carl Gies even lived in the building. The institute was a safe haven for gathering, hosting costume parties. And this is Magnus and Carl actually holding hands. They also gave LGBTQ plus patients recommendations on local bars and venues where they could find community with each other so as not to feel alone. After undergoing gender transitioning surgeries, many trans women found it difficult to get jobs, and Magnus hired 5 of his own patients to work in the clinic itself. They also had a lecture hall inside of the clinic, inviting medical personnel and community members in to share knowledge that would lead to better science and kinder communities. When the Nazi Youth, the German Student Union, and later that afternoon the SA, which was the Nazis' paramilitary wing, piled the contents of the Institute of the Square, they topped the pile with Magnus's bust before lighting it on fire. Magnus watched this event on a television broadcast as he was out of the country at the time, and he passed away in 1935 from a sudden stroke, never to return to his practice. Hitler was named Chancellor of Germany on January 30th, 1933. This happened May 6th of that year. The Germans who committed this heinous crime were not soldiers. They were just terrible everyday people emboldened by a terrible government who told them that minorities were the root cause of the high rates of inflation and social problems. Any people who were not white, cisgender, and Christian were considered immoral and in need of removal lest they corrupt German youth and ruin the traditional family. Sound familiar? The motto of the Institute of Sexual Research was "Through Science to Justice," reminding us that education is the path to equality. We lost so much ancestral knowledge about our community in this one raid, which is why it is our job to preserve as much information as we can in our minds now. Knowledge is a form of rebellion, and the facts and history that you know can never be taken away from you. The memorial for this particular event has the quote, "Where they burn books, in the end they will burn humans too," a line from a book in Hirschfeld's personal library. Education and queer and trans joy are our largest protections right now. Don't get tired, don't get complacent, get angry, and get informed.
To all the Gen Xers that say, what is with all this woke shit? They didn't put this stuff on TV when we were kids. I'd like to show you a few things. Do you remember this episode of The Jeffersons?
Are you one of them,
Transvestites?
Yeah, one of them.
No.
Good, because I can't stand them weirdos. But look, if you ain't gay and you ain't a weirdo, what are you?
I had the operation. I had a sex change. George, I'm a woman now.
Oh. Oh, hey.
I'm not Eddie anymore. I'm Edie. Now, George, this isn't something that happened overnight. I went through years of analysis, but that didn't help. As a man, I was miserable. Everything about me was a woman except the way I looked, so I had the operation.
Oh, Eddie, man, look what you've done to yourself.
Now, George, now, I understand where you're coming from. It's hard for people to accept what I've done. It took me all this time to get up the courage to call you my old buddy. It's important to me that you at least understand.
I understand.
Oh, good. Now, let's go have that drink you were talking about.
Now remember, George Jefferson and Archie Bunker were both bigots, and we were supposed to think that whatever they thought was always the wrong thing. Now, let's travel back to 1982. Do you remember this episode of The Love Boat?
Gopher, I am Ray. It's the truth. I'm your old college roommate, Ray Johnson.
But under the circumstances, I think you were right in not getting involved. After all, I don't know too much about these kinds of people. However...
Excuse me, sir, what do you mean by these kinds of people?
You know. Different.
What do you mean by different? She is the same person.
Oh, come on, Gopher, really?
She is. Except that she probably has more guts than both you and I combined. I mean, do you have any idea what she probably had to go through before she even reached the decision she did? The strings of doctors and the tests that you have to take and who knows what else? Not to mention the pure physical and emotional pain of the whole thing. This takes courage.
You really sound as if you admire her.
I do. And I resent your implication that I should just desert my friend. Are you happy?
Very happy. I've never regretted it, not for a minute. Well, at least not until this cruise. I guess I was wrong. I guess I was wrong to think that I could combine my past and my present.
Are you crazy? You just give up on a friendship that has taken years to build? I take that as a personal insult. I liked you as a man.
Gopher.
Now, quiet, lady. We were good friends in college. We had a lot of laughs together. Now, why shouldn't I like you just because you're a woman? Hmm?
Yes. I'm very lucky to have a friend like you.
No. I'm the lucky one. Because I used to know Ray. And now I'm going to get to know Rachel.
You see, trans people have been around for a long time, and we've been trying to get people to be accepting of them since the 80s. Yet I don't remember back then anybody saying, look at this woke shit that they're trying to force on us. Instead, they saw one of their favorite TV characters just evolving. So instead of being one of the haters like George or Captain Steubing, why don't you try being a little bit more like Gopher?
Here's a story from 631 years ago. A court record following the arrest of a trans sex worker we might today call gender fluid. First, some notes. The original was written in Latin, so the English is approximated. Also, the year is noted in terms of the length of the current monarch's reign, called the regnal year. This modern practice of adopting a standardized international numbered year did not gain wide use in the English-speaking world until the 1750s, meaning this trans person exists in history more than twice as far back as the common use of the 4-digit year. Now, who is the new trend? On the 11th day of December of the 18th year of the reign of Richard II, were brought in the presence of John Fresh, Mayor of London, and Alderman of the City of London, John Britby of the County of York, Eleanor Rickener, having been detected in women's clothing, who were found last Sunday night between the hours of 8 and 9 by certain officials of the city, lying by a certain stall in Soppers Lane, committing that detestable, unmentionable, and ignominious vice. In a separate examination held before the mayor and aldermen about the occurrence, John Britby confessed that he was passing through the high road of Cheap on Sunday between the above-mentioned hours and accosted Eleanor Rickener dressed up as a woman, thinking she was a woman, asking her if she would commit a libidinous act with her. Requesting money for her labor, Rickener consented, and they went together to the aforementioned stall to complete the act, and were captured there during these detestable wrongdoings by the official and taken to prison. Eleanor Rickener, brought here in woman's clothing and questioned about this matter, acknowledged herself to have done everything just as John Britby had confessed. Rickener was also asked who had taught her to exercise this vice, and for how long and in what places and with what persons, masculine or feminine, she had committed that libidinous and unspeakable act. She swore willingly on her soul that a certain Anna, the whore of a former servant of Sir Thomas Blount, first taught her to practice this detestable vice in the manner of a woman. She further said that a certain Elizabeth Bronderer first dressed her in women's clothing. She also brought her daughter Alice to diverse men for the sake of lust, placing her with those men in their beds at night without light, and making her leave early in the morning, and showing them the said Eleanor Rickener dressed up in women's clothing, calling her Eleanor and saying they had misbehaved with her. She further said that certain Philip, rector of Thaden Garnon, had sex with her as a woman in Elizabeth Bronder's house outside Bishopgate, at which time Rickener took away 2 gowns of Philip, and when Philip requested them from Rickener, she said that she was the wife of a certain man, and that if Philip wished to ask for them back, she would make her husband bring suit against him. Rickener further confessed that for 5 weeks before the Feast of St. Michael's last, she was staying at Oxford, and there, in women's clothing and calling herself Eleanor, worked as an embroideress. And there, In the marsh, 3 unsuspecting scholars, one of whom was named Sir William Foxley, another Sir John, and the third Sir Walter, practiced the abominable vice with her. Often. Eleanor Rickner further confessed that on Friday before the Feast of St. Michael, she came to Burford in Oxfordshire, and there dwelt with a certain John Clerk at the Swain in the capacity of tapster for the next 6 weeks, during which time 2 Franciscans, one named Brother Michael and the other Brother John, who gave her a gold ring, and 1 Carmelite friar and 6 foreign men committed the above said vice with her, of whom one gave Rickner 12 pence, one 20 pence, and one 2 shillings. Rickner further confessed that she went to Beaconsfield and there, as a man, had sex with a certain Joan, daughter of John Matthew, and also there, 2 foreign Franciscans had sex with her as a woman. Eleanor Rickner also confessed that after her last return to London, a certain Sir John, one chaplain at the Church of St. Margaret Pattens, and 2 other chaplains committed with her the aforementioned vice in the lanes behind St. Catherine's Church by the Tower of London. Rickner further said that she often had sex as a man with many nuns, and also had sex with an imam, and with many women, both married and otherwise. How many, she did not know. Rickner further confessed that many priests had committed that vice with her as a woman. How many, she did not know, and said that she accommodated priests more readily than other people because they wished to give her more than others. For a lot of us who grew up in the later years of the 20th century, transitioning was never an option until later in life. Here's one more tale of a person who found her way when many might assume it's too late. From Transvita. Transitioning later in life requires both courage and a shift in mindset. This article explores the emotional and practical changes older trans individuals face, offering strategies to embrace authenticity, find community, and navigate both challenges and triumphs. It's a guide to living fully and confidently, proving that it's never too late to start becoming who you truly are. The author writes, "When I was a kid in the suburbs of Detroit during the 1970s, I knew something about me didn't match the reflection in the mirror. I'd sneak into my mom's room and try on her clothes, or stare for too long at the girls around me, not out of attraction, but longing. I didn't want to be with them. I wanted to be them. But back then, there wasn't a word for what I felt, at least not in my corner of the world. No one in our neighborhood talked about gender, and being different was often a quick ticket to bullying or worse. I didn't see myself on TV. I didn't have books or language to explain the ache in my chest. All I knew was that I wanted to be seen, but every signal around me said, hide. So I did. I became what I thought the world expected. A son who played sports, a boy who kept his head down, and a man who built a normal life. Marriage, military, kids, work, all the boxes ticked. But deep down, the silence roared. Now I'm 56 and nearly 3 years into my transition. If I could give one piece of advice to anyone wondering if it's too late, it's this. You're never too old to live your truth. Yes, life will change, with both beautiful surprises and unexpected challenges. But the key to surviving and thriving is your mindset. For years, I tortured myself with questions like, what if I'd known? What if I'd transitioned at 20? Would my body look different? Would my life have been easier? Those thoughts nearly consumed me during my first year of transition. But I've learned something freeing. There's no future in the what ifs. All that matters is now. Every day I live authentically is a day I win back for myself. I replace I wish I had with I'm grateful I can now. The past isn't a life sentence. It's proof of your resilience. Transitioning later in life is transformative, but it's not all joy and rainbows. And that's okay. Life-changing events should feel complicated. Living as your true self is the most powerful act of self-love imaginable. Some people drift away, but the ones who stay are pure gold. A hint of softness in your face or a shift in your voice becomes a triumph, because every change is precious. There are slower physical changes. Hormone replacement therapy at 56 won't create the same results as it does for someone at 25, but the results are still beautiful. Your family and career will probably shift. People might struggle to adjust to your truth. Some relationships will be strained, others will end. It's natural to mourn the lost years that you never had. Childhood as your true self, teenage experiences, being a young adult. But if you accept that joy and grief can coexist, you can celebrate your transition while still acknowledging the pain of what you endured. One thing that surprised me was how my age became a strength rather than a liability. Older transitioners often bring a sense of self-awareness and tenacity that younger people might still be developing. We've survived decades of pretending. We know how to endure. In many ways, I've been training for this my whole life. I learned to navigate complex social dynamics, raise a family, and build a career, all while carrying this hidden truth. Those skills now help me face the challenges of transition with courage and determination. Age doesn't make you weaker. It gives you tools that younger transitioners don't yet have: emotional endurance, resourcefulness, and perspective. When you've lived for decades feeling disconnected from your own reflection, learning to love your body can be a challenge. Hormones help, but the mental shift is where the real transformation happens. I had to learn to stop comparing myself to younger women or to the impossible standards we see online. My body tells my story. It's strong, resilient, and mine. Instead of focusing on what I lack, I focus on what I've gained. Softness, where I once saw hardness. Curves, where I once felt angles. And a sense of belonging that no surgery alone could provide. Your body is not late. It's yours. Treat it like an ally, not an enemy. Coming out and transitioning in midlife can shake every relationship you have, family, friends, and colleagues. Some will adapt, some won't. When I came out, I lost people I thought would always be in my corner. It hurt, but I also found people I never expected. Coworkers who became fierce allies, friends who embraced me without hesitation, and a community of trans and queer elders who felt like family from day one. So, see change in relationships as an opportunity to cultivate authentic connection. The people who stay are those who love the real you. For most of my life, I lived behind walls. I thought vulnerability was weakness. Transition changed that. When I started showing up as myself, people could finally see me, not the version I was pretending to be. And while that exposure was scary, it was also liberating. There's nothing braver than living openly when the world expects you to hide. Vulnerability isn't failure. It's proof of courage. As a kid in 1970s Detroit, I didn't have access to community. I thought I was the only person who felt the way I did. Today, older transitioners can find support in person or online through local LGBTQ+ groups, trans support networks, or dedicated spaces for people over 40. Being around people who understand your journey is vital. It reminds you that you're not alone, that your experiences are valid, and that there's a place for you in this world. Seek community. It will remind you that your truth is not only valid, but celebrated. Transitioning later in life means navigating unique medical and financial landscapes. Health conditions, insurance hurdles, or limited savings can complicate things. But with patience, research, and the right support team, these obstacles can be managed. Plan ahead. Research HRT, surgeries, and mental health resources. Budget realistically. Transition-related care can be costly, but small, steady investments in yourself are worth it. And advocate for your health. Some providers still carry outdated biases. Find professionals who see and respect you. So think of transition as both an emotional and logistical journey. Plan, but also adapt. Transitioning later in life can feel like starting over. For me, that's both thrilling and terrifying. I've had to reimagine what my future looks like as a transgender woman at 56, and I've realized that I get to build something entirely mine. Maybe you'll explore new hobbies, meet new people, travel as your authentic self, or even start dating again. The possibilities are endless. Your future is not smaller because you started later. It's richer because you finally get to live it. If I could go back and tell that confused, scared kid in 1970s Detroit anything, I'd tell her this: hold on. Your time will come. You'll live to see the day where you can be everything you've always been inside. Transitioning in midlife isn't about regret. It's about reclaiming your right to exist, to thrive, to be seen. Transitioning is not about erasing the past. It's about writing the next chapter with the pen finally in your hand. Yes, there are challenges, slower physical changes, evolving relationships, and moments of grief. But there's also joy. There's peace and an unshakable sense of freedom. At 56, I don't regret my timeline. I celebrate it. Every step I take now is a declaration. I am still here. I am still becoming. And I'm exactly where I need to be. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to subscribe. Transpositions Weekly is the first and only weekly trans news show in the universe, and we need your support to keep this show going. Contribute at patreon.com/thetranspositions. Spread the word all over social media to let people know we're here, and tell us what stories matter to you by joining the community on Discord. Discord, of course, is where the memes live, and our meme of the week was posted by yours truly. And if you have no idea how people keep figuring out your extremely well-hidden secrets, wink wink, join us. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about that in the Discord as well. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.